On today's show, your Ottawa Senators are the hottest team in the National Hockey League. We'll break down why and look back at last night's 6-3 win over the Boston Bruins.
And we have a look ahead to tomorrow night's game up against the Toronto Maple Leafs with Locked On Leafs host Mike DiStefano.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. Down in the desert, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. March Madness is here, and right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Just head over to FanDuel.com to get started. Today is Friday, March 14th, and Pilsy, the Ottawa Senators did it again. A fifth straight victory. They are undefeated in regulation in their last 7, and this team is peaking at the right time.
Yeah, this is so awesome to see, Ross. We wanted them to have a big game up against the Boston Bruins, and how about getting off to a hot start, Ross? A 4-1 lead in the first period, and that felt really great to watch the Ottawa Senators turn the tables on a division rival that typically has had their number throughout the years.
First time they've won the season series over the Bruins since 2016-17. They didn't just win the regular season series that win. They also beat them in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Pilsy, the question everybody wants the answer to: how many times have you watched Linus Ullmark's glove save on Mason Lohrei since the highlight was posted last night?
Oh, man, so many times. Ross, I even think that this is crazy, but I think the pictures I've been looking at more than the replay because the photos are so good. You posted the one from our friends over at USA Today where it's just perfect. Him diving. You can see the puck in his glove. Like, just an all-time moment, a desperation save to get all the way over. And Noodles did a good job talking about it in the replay where you have the overhead cam. Linus Ullmark is outside the crease on the other side of the net. And he's got to dive over to make that save. And he perfectly catches it, doesn't drop it, doesn't fumble it. Just an awesome, awesome save from our goalie, number 35, Linus Ullmark.
I love the way he broke it down after. He's like, I had no idea that pass was going to get through. So he came out and challenged the shooter and took him one-on-one. So when it went, he said, I did my C cut. And I saw it was going to be right on the tape. So I just sprawled out. And you can see in the photo we posted, he is tracking the puck with all four eyes, the two Martians on top of his head and his own. Like, that wasn't just stick your glove out and hope. That was a shortstop, Derek Jeter-esque diving across to make a save. That was absolutely incredible. And I think what gets lost, because rightfully so, all the praise should be on that play. The save he made on Mason Lohrei going left to right in the third period, and then the subsequent left pad save on the same sequence might have been as impressive.
Yeah, and I don't know about that second save, probably though, but the first one was huge because that was a 5-3 game. If that goal goes in, it makes it a 5-4 game, and I believe the second one is the same thing. Yeah, so those two are huge saves because I don't know, 5-4, I would have been a lot more nervous about this game. And Ross, I don't know about you watching, but when it got to like the 7-minute mark, I was like, nice, Sens are up 5-3, the clock is ticking. And then I was like, oh, wait, the Bruins were up 5-3 on the Ottawa Senators a little while ago. And we saw how that one went. It completely flipped around. The Sens tied up late and win in the shootout. So I just didn't want to see that happen on the flip side here.
How nice was it watching a Sens Bruins game and cheering for Linus Ullmark over Joonas Korpisalo?
Yeah, definitely nice, Ross. You got your Swayman chance. We got to see Corpy. Like I mentioned, I told you guys, Jeremy Swayman, tad overrated. And look what happened. They chased him pretty quick there.
Hey, as Eric Macramella said, that tweet that keeps getting dunked on, team defense matters, right? I mean, his context was completely wrong, but it did make sense. But Ottawa's team defense needs to clean up. They had a few breakdowns there. Like at one point, Ullmark had allowed 3 goals on 9 shots, but it wasn't on him. I didn't feel like Middlestat was left alone in front of the net. Tough defending from Sanderson and Zub on that play. Tough defending from them as well on, I believe it was either the second or third goal. The other one was a breakaway from Marat Kusnedinov. The second one was a tip from David Pasternak, and him scoring is inevitable. We did a full segment on him yesterday, how he just is the cream of the crop of that team, and everything else is like rotten clam chowder at this point. A little mass reference there, but I just see what this team can do in their B game. And they led the whole game, and that's 2 games in a row now where they have never trailed after a number of the games at the start of this winning streak where they had to find ways to come back after they were down 3-0 to Washington, get a point, down in the third period against San Jose. They're just finding ways now to come together. And I don't know if, I'm sure it is a bit of the captain's mentality, just saying, we are not going to lose. This is game 7. Everything's on the line, and you need to dig in and find a way to win. The Senators are doing just that. 6-0-1 is the best record in the National Hockey League over that span. And they have one player in the top 16 in points. Like, they don't have that one superstar who's leading them every night, 3 points, yada, yada, yada. This is a team that every night a different line is contributing. The third line, we're going to do a full segment next on Ridly Greig finding a perfect role on this team. We kept saying Ridly Greig's a natural center, and you have, at one point, it was Stützle Norris Pinto. Now you have Stützle Cousins Pinto. Where is Ridly Greig going to make an impact on this team? Well, he's found a perfect role. We'll get to that in the next segment. We will preview the game on Saturday, Battle of Ontario later on in the show. But on this game here against Boston, they came out and put their foot down. They said, we're here, packed barn, buzzing. We want playoff chance ringing out for the final 5 seconds after Claude Giroux's empty netter. Like, this team is picking up the vibes of the city. And I don't think that can be understated as they go out on the road here for 5 of the next 6 games. How much do you think the atmosphere around the team is helping them find ways to win?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly helps. Like, you'd rather that than a library over at Scotiabank Arena, right? Like, that's a much better atmosphere for players. You feed off of that. What I like, though, Ross, is the post-game video of Travis Green in the locker room saying, we reset and we find our game. We reset and we find our game, because you can get caught up in being like, oh, we're winning. We got a high percentage to make it to the playoffs. We're pulling away from the other wildcard teams. And you can kind of get away from doing all the little things right and grinding and battling. So I like that mentality of, okay, good win. Nice job, boys. Hard stop, period. Reset. Let's do it again. Let's not try to ride the fumes of this winning streak and just think things are going to come easy, because they've got quite the test coming up with a lot of road games up against big division rival teams. So they need to find a way to keep this going, and they need to be defensively sound.
2 more notes on this game. One we'll save for the start of the next segment, but stick taps are in order. Nicholas Matin-Palo, first NHL point. I mean, this guy has been doing everything that's been asked of him this season and more. He was just a depth piece. He's now played 26 games this year, 30 National Hockey League games, and Nicholas Matin-Palo gets an assist and now has a point to his name in the NHL.
And Ross, I don't care what anyone says. I've decided he did that bank pass off the boards to Tyler Kleven on purpose. You might say a non-hockey fan, non-puck knower might say Matin-Palo missed the net there, but everybody knows the playmaking ability that Matin-Palo has, and he put it on display there with that one.
Love it. Hey, I mean, Sens fans are used to right shot defensemen missing the net this season, and I've never seen one end up so perfectly on a ricochet onto Kleven. And by the way, Tyler Kleven goals in back-to-back games. Don't let this guy get hot.
That was. Oh my God.
He got all of it. We'll save our other note from last night's game on the other side. Teaser, it involves Claude Giroux. Then we'll get into Ridly Greig's fit on the third line and a weekend preview. You're listening to a Friday edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets when it's all over. I love looking at underdogs, and FanDuel makes it easy to get them with spreads, totals, game props. With tournament games happening almost every single day, there's always something exciting to bet on. And the FanDuel app is best in class, guys. Way better than any other sportsbook app I've ever used. It's simple. It's so easy to navigate through when you're trying to get your bets in quickly. And when you get paid, it's instantly those green numbers and those trophies hitting your account real quick. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Trade Coffee. This time of year, especially when the time changes, you got to get your coffees into you in the morning. I got tired, though, of the same old brands at the grocery store. It just wasn't cutting it. That's why I turned to Trade. And let me tell you, the coffee is next level. I got one right here. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the States, bringing you fresh coffee from 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you want, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. They've even got a quick quiz online, and in under a minute, they matched me with my beautiful blonde roast. It smelled incredible and tasted even better. My first bag was a game changer. It was smooth, rich flavor, and I could taste the difference from my usual coffee. They have a subscription plan, which makes it easy. No more last-minute grocery runs or settling for whatever's on the shelf. And if you don't love your first bag, no worries. Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com /LockedOnNHL. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com /LockedOnNHL for 40% off your first order. That's drinktrade.com /LockedOnNHL. All right, Philsy. Senators win 6-3. They are now 5 points clear of both Columbus and the New York Rangers. We'll have our cheering guide at the end of this segment. But one note from last night's game, Senators up 2 goals with 7 minutes left, and Mark Kastelik, #SensAbroad, is at the Senators bench. You don't work here anymore. I don't know why you're at our bench, but Claude Giroux is giving it to him, and he just flicks his visor like that. It almost reminded me of, Kobe Bryant with Matt Barnes, where Barnes is just giving it to him and Kobe's just standing there, just talking, and he tries to make him flinch and he just doesn't move. Giroux was unfazed, but I've been thinking and trying to get my lip reader diploma out of my closet. What did Claude Giroux say to get Kastelik so wound up?
I don't know. I don't know if that was Casty wound up though, Ross. We've seen Casty when he's wound up, and it looks a lot more than just flicking a guy's visor.
But he wasn't happy. That wasn't like, oh, ha ha ha, we're former teammates. That was funny. He was upset.
Yeah. It almost seemed more to me, Ross, like Cassie did, like, oh, Claude, you got something on your neck guard there. You got and then just do the little flick up there. I don't know what was going on.
No, and we did have one potential lip reader figure this, or at least they think they've figured it out. And it almost sounds where is it here? I wanted to find it because I think I kept looking at it, and I was like, I think this guy got it right. He's like, hey, buddy, kind of funny how this worked out, eh? Hey, how are you? You okay? You okay? You should have. Hey, bud, should have stayed.
Yeah, it should have stayed. Maybe is it. I'm looking at it here.
Or
yeah.
Hey, you're still in the league.
Whoa, hey, come on now. I got nothing against Casty.
Me neither. But
fourth liner.
But we know Claude Giroux is not afraid to be a bit of a trash talker out there. And I feel like he said something pretty mean to Mark Kastelik in that moment.
Speaking of former teammates, though, oh my God, how poetic would it have been, Ross, if Linus Ullmark gets that goalie goal up against his former team? He even mentioned it, like, I thought it would have been special to get it against these guys at home. The crowd's already chanting Ullmark chants if he scores that goal. Now he was quite wide there, but
he ripped that thing.
Man, that's what I was going to say. The fact that he's able to get that much juice on it and get it that high as a goalie, hashtag goalie friendly show, Ross, there's no chance I'm putting that much mustard on a shot like that. Like at best, I can scoop and shovel it up, but that's flicking and it's got no momentum. It's not sliding all the way down the ice. Like it's crazy the amount of power and height he was able to get on that.
Super impressive. I would go wild. The Sens have one goalie goal in franchise history, Damian Rhodes, but he didn't shoot the puck into the net. He made a save, and then it was a pass to the blue line that completely missed. And kind of like Ilya Sorokin's goal earlier this year where Stamkos shot it back and missed the defender. So he was the last player on the other team to touch the puck, therefore getting credit for it. We want to give some credit to Ridley Greig, finding a perfect spot as the third line left winger on a shutdown line with Shane Pinto and Michael Amadio. This is a line that I think Travis Green is going to rely on heavily. And if you look at the ice times, he's doing just that. Ridly Greig's three biggest ice time games this season have been in the last 3 games, and it's paying off not only defensively, shutting down other teams' top lines, but Ridly Greig is providing offense. In March, in these 7 games, he has 5 points, is +5, snapping back 62.5% of his faceoffs, and he's averaging 18 minutes and 40 seconds, Pilsy. What have you seen from that line that gives you confidence of them going up against anybody?
It's a combination of being really sound defensively, but not being totally flat offensively as well, right? Like not only is Travis Green putting this line up against other teams' top offensive lines and shutting them down, but they're able to score as well. We've seen Michael Amadio has really popped off recently. Shane Pinto has kind of got a lot more consistency in his game, but it's almost like some like the opposite of the old saying, sometimes offense is the best defense. Well, sometimes defense is the best offense. If you're shutting down other teams and you're possessing the puck, you're going to be able to turn that into offense. And you have guys like Ridley Greig, like Shane Pinto, like Michael Amadio, who aren't necessarily massive point producers, but with time and space and good hockey IQ, they can find ways to score goals. So the fact that this line is getting it done, that is the type of third line you want. And that's the type of third line, Ross, that in the playoffs, I feel like you look at them and you're like, they're a big reason why this team is giving their opponents a tough time.
And Ridley Greig's a pest. We know that. He's going to get guys off their game. He's going to get is a Coyote a pest? Let us know sound off in the comments.
A Coyote is certainly a pest, Ross. As a farmer, they can cause a lot of damage if they get into the hen house, the chickens. Oh God, look out.
So in these 7 games that Ridley Greig and the third line has elevated their game, they've combined for 10 goals in those 7 games. You wanted more depth scoring? Well, Shane Pinto's got 5 goals in the last 7 games. Michael Amadio has 3 and 3. Both Pinto and Amadio have 6 points, and Ridley Greig's got 5. This is as perfect of a unit as you can find to play these meaningful minutes against other teams' top line. So Ridley Greig, to me, is the biggest story because Michael Amadio, you knew he had a cup in his back pocket. He's a guy who's played in these games before. You hoped and expected to an extent that he would elevate in these roles. But for me, Ridley Greig, and to a lesser extent, Shane Pinto, who had proven it more at the NHL level, are really impressing me. So I thought it was fair and important for us to give a shout out to Ridley Greig for finding his spot on this team that's really going to impact them going forward.
Yeah, and he needed to find his spot, Ross, because we had seen him as the 6th guy in the top 6 at times, and it was okay. It didn't really work. And then we saw him on the 4th line even, and that wasn't enough opportunity for a guy like him. So for him to find his place as a third line left winger really puts stability into this lineup.
It certainly does. Since we're talking about the Senators during this 7-game stretch where, again, they are the hottest team in the National Hockey League. We'll pull it up on YouTube for those who are watching here, and we'll just go over a couple of the highlights. These are the Sens point leaders over this stretch. Look, every single player who has at least 4 points is a plus player on this team. The 5-on-5 scoring has really been impressive. Is there a player here that has exceeded your expectations the most? Now, Jake Sanderson leads the Senators with 9 assists in these 7 games. Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk have 8 points each. Brady has 6 goals in the last 7 games. Then you've got Batherson with 7 points, thanks to a 3-point outing last night. And then Shane Pinto, Michael Amadio with 6. David Perron, Claude Giroux, and Ridly Greig all have 5 points in the last 7 games.
As far as exceeding my expectations, Ross, I think I would go with Michael Amadio here. It was tough throughout the year. I kept kind of saying my line about him is, what does he do well? What is his attribute? What is his role? What is his job? Because he doesn't have that one defining attribute, but I don't think he has to be. I think he's one of those kind of jack of all trades players. And our guy, Aleem's Martian, mentioned it, and I see the shades of and the comparable. He compared him a little bit to Nick Paul, right? Like, good size, good defensive game, but also can put the puck in the back of the net once in a while, like we saw him do up against Philly. That nice play along the boards where he's up on the wing and he slides it under the goalie's pads for a good goal. And I think he's really brought some balance to that third line. Him and Shane Pinto have really nice chemistry lately. So as far as impressed me, I'll go with Michael Amadio.
He leads the team, tied with Drake Batherson in even strength points.
Yep, huge.
In March. That's awesome and so important. The other guy who we haven't mentioned once this show, Dylan Cousins, extends his point streak to 4 games. Now, I will never be throwing shade at Josh Norris, but these two players will be compared naturally so, not only this season, but for the rest of their careers. And Jack Richardson in the group chat said, Josh Norris doesn't have a single 4-game point streak this year at all. So the consistency that Dylan Cousins has brought to the lineup, 3 of those 4 points at even strength. He's +5 in 4 games with the Senators, snapping back 58% of his faceoffs. It's just been impressive to see. So happy for Dylan Cousins, really finding his role on this team.
And we got to mention it, Ross. He solved the Drake Batherson problem. Go back to that screen quickly.
Okay.
If you can. Look who's right behind him. Drake Batherson. Right? Jake Batherson was struggling playing with Josh Norris. And they were handcuffed together for weeks. Like they didn't spend hardly any time apart. But now that Dylan Cousins is here, Drake Batherson has refound his game as well. So I think arguably that's the biggest contribution Dylan Cousins has made, is sparking Drake Batherson again.
Love to see it. The boys are going to be back in action tomorrow against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Brady Tkachuk left last night's game. Didn't leave though. Hey, just like Matthew did at the Four Nations, even though he was hurt, he stayed on the bench for the end of the game. He was out there giving some love to Linus Ullmark in the goalie handshake. So we hope he's okay. Travis Green mentioning he tweaked his hip, but should be okay. If he's not, hey, you wanted Fabian Zetterlund to move higher in the lineup. At what cost? But hopefully Brady Tkachuk is okay and remains in the lineup. On the other side, Mike DiStefano will join us to tee up the game from the Leafs perspective. We'll wrap up today's show looking at Ottawa's potential lines and our Locked On players to watch. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. You ever looked at your bank account and you're sitting there going, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, guys. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one easy place so you can stop managing your money and start building your wealth. Juggle multiple apps? No, don't do that. Check out Monarch Money so your finances track spending, and you can even plan long-term goals, and you can manage money with your partner. It makes it a lot easier. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all that stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Club EG. Now, with the time change, it's so nice. It stays light out later, and that means golf season is around the corner, and Club EG is the perfect avenue if you want to get out on the course more this summer in Ottawa. Whether you're a male, female, junior, senior, good golfer, or you suck like me but love getting out on the course, doesn't matter. Club EG has something for you. You can purchase a membership and play over 60 great courses that Club EG partners with. You can join a golf league. You can go on a golf trip, or you can play in the Ottawa Sens Scramble, a 2-person scramble championship. It's completely up to you which path you take with Club EG. Check out clubeg.golf online for more information and to learn about so many great options to get you playing more golf this summer. With 60 great courses in Club EG's repertoire, you have so many options, and as mentioned, their tournaments, leagues, and trips are all high class, best in class. You do not have to be a member to take part in any of their events, leagues, or trips, but if you want to become a member to play their 60 great courses day in and day out, there's something for you at clubeg.golf. Get there now and check out the great early bird special that they have on at Club EG Golf. Club EG Golf. Learn more about their many great options to get you playing more golf this summer. All right, Pillsy, so now it is time to look ahead to tomorrow, the final Battle of Ontario this season, and the Ottawa Senators are going for the sweep. It's kind of unfortunate, though, eh? Only 3 games head-to-head this season?
Yeah, that's not enough, but Ross, maybe there's more in the future. We don't know yet.
Oh, we'll ask our next guest. We bring on recurring guest, friend of the show, the reason why Locked On Senators exists today, as it is, from Locked On Maple Leafs, Mike DiStefano. Fella, what's going on, man?
What's happening, fellas? I'm excited as everyone else is for the Battle of Ontario. I mean, guys, you and I, like, we're all the same age here, where, you know, late 20s, early 30s. We witnessed the Battle of Ontario really kick things off in the 2000s, but we haven't had it since. I feel like it's back, boys, because for the first time in, well, what seems like literally 20 years, we got 2 teams in Ontario battling as they head into the final stretch into the playoffs. This is a valuable 2 points up for grabs tomorrow night.
Yeah, the Leafs going for the division title. Ottawa trying to continue to pull away from the pack of Columbus and the New York Rangers in that second wildcard spot. I mean, Mikey, 2 weeks ago on Locked On NHL, you and I do that every Wednesday together. We both said Ottawa and New York, the Rangers. Those are our 2 teams at the end of the day that we believe will be the wild card teams. You feel as confident today, if not more, than you did 2 weeks ago?
Well, I certainly feel more confident in your Senators. I mean, they're one of the hottest teams in hockey. Like 5 straight wins. You got a goalie who's making miraculous saves. Like last night on Mason Lohrei, I'm sure you guys have spent, 48 minutes talking about that on this podcast. So, yeah, I mean, I feel great about your Sens. I think they are definitely playoff bound. They're going to break that, 7 years now where they haven't made the playoffs. I think that drought's coming to an end. Brady Tkachuk talked about, him not playing in many big games, and that Canada-USA matchup was the biggest game that he had played coming into, that 4 Nations tournament. Well, I think he's about to play a couple big ones coming up in a couple of weeks here.
Mike, how sick is this photo from USA Today?
That's pretty sweet, actually. That's quite. I mean, it's not as nice as the Simone Benoit Superman punch photo. Don't know if you guys saw that one. Pretty sick photo. Not gonna.
Well, that'd be the equivalent of Ullmark diving and not catching the puck, because Benoit was a great dive, but he didn't connect.
Yeah, but the picture, you can't tell he didn't connect. It's a sick photo. But that also pretty sweet. That's save of the year caliber. That's a big time save. And look, I gotta hand it to you guys. I clowned a little bit on the signing, or at least I didn't. I wanted to wait and see how it turned out, the Linus Ullmark, and it's been an up and down year for him. I think you guys can even, admit that with the injuries and whatnot. But he's starting to come into his own, and it looks like the Sens finally got a goaltender and might lead him to the playoffs.
So, Mikey, what's the angle from the Leafs side of the table here when it comes to a Battle of Ontario in the playoffs? Because a lot of Sens fans are hungry for it. They want it. But I feel like for the Leafs, it's a little bit of low reward, high risk. Like if you beat them, well, you've been, like we talked about, the old Battles of Ontario, the Leafs have beaten the Sens how many times in the playoffs? So if you beat them again, it's like, well, yeah, we beat them again. But if you lose, then that's where it's tough for the Leafs. Where do you land on that?
I think it's going to be tough whoever Toronto plays in the first
Yeah,
round,
fair.
realistically. I mean, often the Leafs beat themselves, realistically, in round one. So whether it's Ottawa, whether it's Tampa, whether it's Florida, or whoever it ends up being, Washington, or like whoever it ends up being in round one, it's going to be difficult. I personally would love to see it. Like I'd like to see it happen. Relive that old rivalry from my childhood and see these two teams go at it in a 7-game series. I want it to happen, and I don't. I think it's less likely to happen after last night's loss for the Maple Leafs. They're now 3 points back of Florida. They still have 2 games to go in the season. They still got a couple games. I think those are going to be big deciders. But the way that Toronto's been playing of late, it hasn't been great. Meanwhile, Florida just continue to put points up on the board. So I think they're probably going to end up pulling away. And unfortunately, unless Ottawa can leapfrog Tampa, I'm not sure we'll end up seeing that as a round one anymore, which really is kind of upsets me.
Yeah, me too. I think that, well, one, it'd be great for content. I mean, our shows would boom for those 2 weeks. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah.
No disrespect to the hockey fans down in Florida, but I don't think it has the same pizzazz as the Battle of Ontario would obviously have. Now, the Leafs, obviously, they lost last night, but the lineup's looking pretty solid after the trade deadline acquisitions of Scott Laughton and Brandon Carlo. We're expecting the lineup to look like this: Austin Matthews with Matthew Nyes and Mitch Marner, John Tavares centering Calle Yarncroc and William Nylander, Scott Laughton centering Bobby McMahon and Max Domi, who had a great fight last night against Nate Schmidt. Bit of a different level of fighter between those two guys. And then David Camp for the fourth line with Pontus Holmberg and Steven Lorenz. On defense, Morgan Riley's getting the assignment next to newly acquired Brandon Carlo. Then you've got Jake McCabe with Chris, not Brandon Tanev, and then Simon Benoit with Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Stolar's back from injury. He was still out the last time the Senators and Leafs played in Ottawa. Joseph Woll got the start in that game. He is expected to back up. What in this lineup are Leaf fans looking at as a key to victory on Saturday against Ottawa?
A couple things. I think ultimately they got to score. I mean, we're looking at a Leafs team that has really struggled to put the puck in the back of the net, especially on home ice, which is very peculiar. But one of the worst teams. They're about a 500 club on home ice over the last 6 weeks or so, and they really have a tough time scoring more than 2 goals. So they got to score, and it's Austin Matthews. It's kind of the player that a lot of people are looking at right now. He's a guy who scored 69 a year ago. Guys, he's got 3 goals in his last 16 games. One was a power play goal. One was an empty netter. Just one in his last 16 games. One at 5-on-5. That is the one thing that Maple Leaf fans need to see from a guy like Austin Matthews, the captain. He's got to put pucks in the back of the net. And hey, if there's one team Austin Matthews likes to fill the net against, we know it's your Ottawa Senators. Just go ask your boy Erik Karlsson. So if there is a team and there is a night for Matthews to get back on the board and get going, I think tomorrow kind of would be a storybook kind of fitting ending to the slump he's been in.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a Leafs comment because you're looking at those early games in his career, just like regular season.
I know.
Austin Matthews has 1 goal in his last 11 games against the Ottawa Senators.
Oh, trust me, I'm well aware. He will not be on my FanDuel best bet for
1 goal. Sorry, he did get 1 goal. 1 goal, 1 assist in the same game there. But yeah, 1 goal in the last 10 games. Matthews against Ottawa. Pilsy, your final question for our guy Mike DiStefano. Go check out Locked On Leafs for more on their angle of this weekend's game.
Yeah, final question for me is the Leafs are going to be wearing their St. Pat's jerseys, the white and green. I feel like maybe this is just my Sens bias peeking through, but I feel like whenever they wear those up against the Sens, it doesn't go well for them. Do you know, or do you have an idea of what the Leafs record is in the St. Pat's jerseys? Like, does that give you confidence, or are you like, oh no, not this again?
Actually, funny, I don't know what their actual record is, but yeah, I've got a recollection of some L's that they've definitely taken wearing that jersey. So I would imagine that they've had more losses than wins in that jersey. Just trying to think back over the years how many W's they've had. I think they had 1 win against Carolina in a high scoring game where they wore that jersey, which is good to see, I guess. But outside of that, I'm trying to think. But yeah, I suppose that's not a good omen. But
Do you
I don't
like them?
know.
Like, do Leafs fans like that,
No,
or is
I
it kind of
hate
played
them.
out?
They're the dumbest. Also, if you look at the back of the jerseys, the way that they have like the coloring on the numbers, it's so bad. Like I feel so bad for Joe Bowen having to call those games on the radio. There's
Yeah.
no one who hates those jerseys more than Bonesy. He hates them because you can't see the numbers on the back of the jersey. It's just so stupid. So I'm honestly not a big fan of them, no, personally. But there's a lot of people that are, and I'm sure they are selling a lot of those jerseys and will probably sell a hefty amount on Saturday.
I'm glad you wrapped up this segment talking about money because we know the Leafs love talking about it and having all of it. Their payroll's always the highest in the league. But tomorrow, everyone will strap on the same skates, the same gloves, the same helmets, and battle it out for the final time this regular season. Hate the Leafs, love Locked On Leafs. Appreciate you, Mikey. Great insight into tomorrow's game. Enjoy it, and hopefully it's not the last time we get it this season.
I'm with you, man. I hope it's not. I wouldn't bet on it being another Battle of Ontario in the playoffs, but let's hope tomorrow's a good game for both of us, boys.
All right, stick taps to Mikey for joining us. Always love having him on the show. Great guy, and you can check out Locked On Maple Leafs for more. Pillsy, the Ottawa Senators, heading into tomorrow night's game. Again, the hottest team in the league. I feel like I'm going to say that a lot on today's show, but it bears repeating. The boys are buzzing, as people like to say. And we also know Travis Green doesn't like changing a winning lineup, so we're just going to assume the Sens are going to rock with the same lineup they did in their win over Boston. Tim Stützle centering the top line with Claude Giroux on right wing and Brady Tkachuk at left wing. The second line, Dylan Cousins centering David Perron and Drake Batherson. You got Shane Pinto between Ridley Greig and Michael Amadio, and the line of Adam Gaudette, Matthew Highmore, and Fabian Zetterlund to round things out. On the back end, Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, Thomas Chabot with Nick Jensen, and the third pair is Tyler Kleven with Nicholas Matinpalo. Will Linus Ullmark start in goal? I would say probably. Senators with a full day off today. We will next see them on the ice for the morning skate tomorrow. Who will be your locked on player to watch?
I'm going to be locked on to number 24, Ross, Dylan Cousins. I love what this guy brings to the Ottawa Senators. He's fit in so well as a second-line center. He already talked about his chemistry with Drake Batherson, but he's worked out really well with David Perron as well. David Perron has really had an uptick in his game since Cousins has been brought in, and I like every aspect of Dylan Cousins' game. He's got a great shot. We saw that. He sniped one top shelf. He's able to be a playmaker. He's got a couple nice assists too. Every single game this guy's put on an Ottawa Senators jersey, he's had an impact on the game and gotten a point. So number 24, that's my guy. And as a Buffalo Sabre for the start of his career, Ross, this is a guy that's played a lot up against the Leafs too, so familiar territory.
And you've got to be able to stack good shifts. In Dylan Cousins' career against the Leafs, he has 1 goal and 7 points in 12 games so far. So let's keep it rolling and keep it rolling on a 4-game point streak for Dylan Cousins. I'm going to be locked on the captain. We want to see that he's healthy, that he's good to go. These meaningful games, we know that is a critical importance for the Ottawa Senators, and I think they need that Brady Tkachuk to. I mean, you're going for a season sweep against your biggest rival and a team you could play in the playoffs, right? Like, this is where you want your leaders to take charge. So I'll be locked on to Brady Tkachuk with an honorable mention to Shane Pinto, who has been scoring at will. Sens now 11-0-1 this season when Shane Pinto has a goal, and 19-1-1 when Shane Pinto gets a point. Truly a remarkable, ridiculous stat, however you want to put it. So I'm excited for this Ottawa Senators team, Pilsy, and it's a great vibe in the nation's capital right now. Sens fans are so excited, and rightfully so, online. And now let's get to where last night's game put the Ottawa Senators. Our cheering guide for tonight and a look back at the standings now that the Senators have rattled off a 6-0-1 stretch. Pilsy, that's 13 points in the standings out of a possible 14 in their last 7 games.
March has been a very good month for the Ottawa Senators, Ross. We know Sens fans don't like November. They're not too fond of February either. But I feel like even going back a couple of years, Ross, the Sens, unfortunately, in years past, it was them making a meaningless push and lowering their lottery percentage odds. But now we love winning games in March. I mean, we always love it, but now the wins in March are great.
And February and November are literally the most depressing months of the year. Like November, your clocks move back, it's dark out, and then February is the shortest and the least amount of sunlight it feels like in the year. So get those months out of the calendar. Can we get a bill passed?
You got to find a way to get those months out of the game, Ross.
We got to get that out of the game.
It's not part of hockey.
Not part of hockey there. February, November, get them out of the game. Senators now is 75 points on the season. They played the same amount of games as Columbus, and Columbus is faltering now. They got shut out 4-0 by Vegas last night. They're at 70 points, tied with the New York Rangers, who got an OT win over Minnesota last night. Now, the Rangers have one extra game played than both Columbus and Ottawa. Montreal, lurking. They're just 1 point back of Columbus and New York, but they've played 65 games, the same as Ottawa and Columbus, setting up for a great Tuesday matchup. Ottawa in Montreal for that one. Detroit, they're not going away. They're just 2 points out of that final playoff spot as well. They're at 68 points, tied with the Boston Bruins. The Bruins have played more games than anybody else in the playoff race. I think we can put a pencil ruler in there with the New York Islanders, Philadelphia Flyers, Pittsburgh Penguins, and Buffalo Sabres on the outside looking in as it stands right now. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair to say, Ross. Another thing that's interesting to me, Ross, we always talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets. Man, it's so crazy how good they are at home. Look at their home record. Look at the Sens' home record. They same amount of wins, 20. They only have 2 more regulation losses, and those 2 regulation losses for the Blue Jackets are overtime or shootout losses. So essentially, the Ottawa Senators record at the CTC is basically just as impressive as Columbus Blue Jackets home record. So the fans are a part of that. So everyone going to games, everyone showing out, everyone being loud, bringing the energy. Kudos to you.
And Ottawa's 15, 16, and 3 on the road. They play 5 of their next 6 on the road. The only one at home is against the red-hot Colorado Avalanche. So let's try to get the road record above 500. That would be a win for my money for the Ottawa Senators, especially after their struggles the last 5 years on the road. That should be the goal for the Senators here over this next stretch. There's only one game tonight that has big implications for the Ottawa Senators. We're going to be cheering for the Carolina Hurricanes at home against the Detroit Red Wings. To a lesser extent, the Edmonton Oilers are on the road against the New York Islanders, but we just kind of said that they're done. So it'd be nice if the Oilers win, but not the end of the world. We are really heavily rooting for the Carolina Hurricanes to beat the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, we need that. We need it.
Any final thoughts on today's show, Pelsey? What a week. I mean, since the trade deadline, basically, citizens have shown up and showed out here supporting the show. We can't thank everybody enough. And I want to give a special shout out, too, to the lifeguard at the Nepean Sportsplex. Our good listener, good citizen Don said he was taking his daughter to a swim lesson at 6 a.m., and they had the postcast blasting on the speakers. I know the girls wanted to listen to Taylor Swift, but shout out to the beauty that put us on the speakers at the Nepean Sportsplex this morning.
Yeah, that's awesome. We love to hear that. That's when you know you've made it, Ross.
Yes. I grew up playing in that rink a bunch, man. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. Final thoughts for me is let's take a peek down at the AHL here. The Belleville Center's been on a bit of a slide recently, 2-game losing streak, but they're still only 2 points out of that playoff spot. The Syracuse Crunch 2 points ahead, but the Belleville Sens have a game in hand. This is going to be a huge weekend for them. 2 games up against the Bridgeport Islanders, who are dead last in their division. So you got to get at least one of these games, both of them at home, CAA Arena. If not, you want to win both of these to really kind of secure your spot in that 5th place in the North Division here. So let's go be Sens.
And let's go Ottawa Senators. It's a Saturday night, Sens Leafs, meaningful game for both teams. The Leafs looking to win the division, Senators looking to pull away and not even be in the wild card mix, looking to really get that X next to their name. I'm already like dreaming of what the episode's going to be the day after if it does happen. I'm just so excited for Senators fans who have been through such awful years and still come back. Thank you, sir. May I have another? And now the tides are turning in Ottawa. So it's a one anthem game on a Saturday night in the library of Scotiabank Arena. If you're a Sens fan going to the game, be loud there. Lots to cheer about with this Senators team. Cannot wait to see everyone in the postcast tomorrow. For today, we say goodbye. Thank you for watching, listening, and engaging with the show. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.